it is very interesting to me because the people who are like creating social media pages and like pumping their fists in the air to like save their tiny school, you all voted in, because you are very loud and proud to be MAGA, you all voted in a man who is going to do away with the DOE. The DOE is the Department of Education, which protects public schools nationwide.
In Wisconsin, rising economic pressure is sparking a wave of concern and frustration among Trump MAGA supporters across the state. In this video, you'll hear firsthand accounts from residents describing how these changes are affecting their lives. Listen closely. These are the stories behind Wisconsin's growing uproar.
Dairy farmers in Wisconsin are being decimated. The dairy industry is tanking. And why? I mean, we've all heard these Trump NZs screaming from the rooftops, oh, the tariffs that Canada were imposing on their milk, on their dairy, was over the top, it was extreme. Well, it's because of, you know, they have healthy cows and they look after their animals, right? That's why they got a premium on their milk. But here's the funny thing, the dairy farmers in Wisconsin, 40% of their milk or their dairy industry is exported. And guess where it's exported to? Mexico and Canada. Well, what do you know?
When will you stand up to them and say that is enough?
The end result of the fraud and abuse that has been discovered already.
Absolutely no proof.
Striking moment there. Later, several attendees expressed their disappointment with the congressman, including one person who asked why he was not stopping ICE raids by masked agents targeting immigrants.
Why are they wearing masks and why are they unidentified?
We'll probably agree to disagree on some of my answer here, but what I view is the moral hazard created by the Biden administration by allowing the U.S.-Mexico border to remain insecure. And so, it's completely fine that we disagree. There's nothing wrong with disagreeing on the topic. President Biden had a different view than I did on the importance of securing the U.S.-Mexico border. But as millions of illegal immigrants came into the United States and there was a lack of action by the federal government, you're now seeing that action take place with the removal particularly of individuals who are in the country illegally.
I am so disappointed. I am so disappointed in how you represent us as the citizens of Walworth County. Southeast Wisconsin has not been represented by you. President Trump seems to run Southeast Wisconsin through you. And all I have to ask is I will be out there working hard if you choose to run for any office.
I don't think you're the right fit for us anymore. I just think it's time to go. You just don't relate to most of us anymore, and you got to know when to step down. I think it's time.
I want to have you address the question that was shouted about the starving children in Gaza, but also the
Let the woman get a question.
But also the hungry children in Wisconsin due to SNAP and food bank cuts.
I was under the impression that Congress was responsible for issuing the tariff. I really feel that this is a terrible tax that's going to be placed upon the citizens of the United States.
This really, at its core, needs to be an opportunity to make sure that other countries are treating the United States fairly. The United States appreciate everybody coming out tonight. Doesn't mean that everyone fully agrees with me. I know there's a lot of people that did agree with me. I thank you down here as well, and look forward to seeing everybody again soon. Everybody have an absolutely wonderful night.
Apple is building a $2 billion data center in Wisconsin, but refuses to hire local workers. They are importing thousands of foreign workers instead, while Wisconsin has 4.2% unemployment. Local residents are furious as their tax dollars fund Apple while getting zero jobs.
Voice my strong opposition to the data center being built in Port Washington. The information we have been given by the city of Port Washington is not only dishonest, but it's just clearly biased. We deserve more than a double-sided page of ramblings distilled from propaganda derived from $2 billion tech companies disguised as facts.
The cost to Port is over $100 million. Vantage and Oracle AI want Port to pay them back $175 million plus 7% interest.
We don't want this. Make no mistake. We don't want this. Everyone in the city is opposed to this, minus a handful, a very small minority of people who are going to profit from this. The people selling their farms, and you 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 and you. Right, we're not that stupid. Don't do this. Don't sell out our town. It's a beautiful town. This is our home.
The people of Port Washington have spoken via direct legislation and formally requested the city leaders not create this enormous tax increment district without putting the issue to referendum.
In only a few days, over 1,000 of the city of Port Washington voters said they want this brought to a referendum. Saukville, on the other hand, will have an advisory referendum on residential chickens. But the all-knowing mayor and council in Port Washington felt only they should decide on a $15 billion project that impacts this entire region. Oracle and OpenAI are worth more than $1 trillion combined. If big tech cared about this community, they would have structured a community benefit agreement that provides funding for Port Washington and Saukville schools, funding to pay for the $30 million plus municipal building, an agreement to fund the buried power lines to protect the rural landscape and lessen the risk to livestock and human health, and a guarantee in place now, not potentially in the spring, ensuring energy costs do not rise. Instead, we are not seeing any major tax benefits until we pay Vantage back for infrastructure that supposedly the city needs, estimated to be 18 years from now. If it wasn't for this project, this massive infrastructure would not be needed. Vantage should be paying for all of this. On the TID, of the $460 million TID, almost $190 million is interest charges to the city owes to Vantage. Folks, 40% of the TID is interest charges back to Vantage that should have been tax revenue for the city. When you take the TID less than interest charges, it's only 1.8% of this project. They must have loved negotiating with you guys. Put the power back to the people to move forward with a referendum.
Are we willing to sell our soul and our city for a pie-in-the-sky promise?
This is a 10 to 20 year lifespan of this thing. Do you even have a plan to decommission all the stuff, the infrastructure that is associated with this thing? It's not going to be anything after that. It's going to be crap. And then so is this town.
Even its effects on human relationships, mental health, jobs, and the environment doesn't bother you, the investment bubble should. Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI, recently has spoken about the lack of return on investment in AI. In 2024, the company lost $5 billion. In the first half of 2025, it lost $13.5 billion, and in the last quarter alone, it lost $12 billion more dollars. Billionaire Peter Thiel agrees. The news has come in that he just dumped 2/3 of the U.S. market share from Nvidia, which is a major partner in this AI development plan. OpenAI's chief financial officer Sarah Fryer suggested that a government loan guarantee might be necessary to close the gap. This is what you're staking your political career on, and I think that you're doing the wrong thing.
Vantage and We Energies came in here and lied to their constituents and everyone else watching by saying that they were going to pay the cost of the electricity for the data center. This is a lie because last week it was published in the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel that We Energies proposed a rate structure for the very large customers, where very large customers will only pay 75% of the electricity cost of the data centers, and 25% gets put on to everyone else. Shame on these companies for lying to us.
Here's an example of Mark Peck, a farmer in Wisconsin, and Mark raises soybeans, corn, alfalfa, oats, dairy, and beef. Now, he needed, at one point, a seed treater, which is used to shield seeds from pests and diseases. So in March 2025, he found a Chinese-made seed treater for about $7,800, which is the base price. That's not the important number to think about in this example. With added features like computer control, a bucket, a hopper, and shipping, it costs $12,810. That's the important price. And this was the price, or the total price, before the 2020 tariffs. Then, cumulative tariffs in total were about 45%, which added an extra $5,764 to the cost of that treater. So that rose the price from $12,800 roughly to $18,574. Now, in April, after Liberation Day tariffs, Mark's total cost rose from $18,574 to $26,132. Now, Mark said it'll take him an extra 4 years to pay off that seed treater. So from $12,810 to $26,132, that's a 2x difference, or a 104% increase in cost. Like, this is real. This is real impact.
I'm going to face losses. You know, I don't want to face losses. You know, that's eating into my capital. It's eating into my equity. So, but that's what farmers are going to face.
Do you think you'll be able to make up for that in any way? Or,
No.
Or is it going to?
No.
Okay.
Which is a real kick in the shorts.
Aaron Pape is a farmer from Peshtigo in northeastern Wisconsin. He recently got a disturbing message from the federal government.
They replied back that they owed me about $30,000. But then there was some very disconcerting language. We're unable to pay on this contract at this time and don't know when funds will be made available because it was contracted as part of the Inflation Reduction Act. Any further practice implementation is at my own discretion.
The message came from the Natural Resources Conservation Service about the reimbursement contract they have with the Pape family farm.
$30,000 might not be a lot of money to some people, but it's a lot to me. It's a lot to my business, and I need that money to operate. I was counting on that money to be able to operate my farm this year. If I don't get paid that $30,000, I got to go borrow that money.
The reimbursement contract was going to help the Papes pay for seed, a watering system, and fence.
And in return, we're taking worn-out cropland that's been highly eroded, causing water quality impacts, and we're putting in a permanent perennial grass. I think it's a win-win program.
Pape says the freeze is adding more economic uncertainty for farmers also being hit with the end of USAID, which will cost farmers hundreds of millions of dollars in income. Plus, farmers could bear the brunt of retaliation from tariffs affecting fertilizer pricing and availability right away, all rippling through the rest of the rural economy.
Federal government is just being hit with a sledgehammer right now, and programs are just being smashed and departments being closed, at the drop of a hat. It's way too chaotic. It's making it very difficult to react to.
Pape says he expected elected leaders to make well-thought-out decisions that are in the best interests of the people.
I'm a pretty conservative guy, a longstanding Christian, and have very conservative moral, and social values, you could say. But at the end of the day, I understand that competency in government is a good thing.
Our farmers are being raked over the coals again.
Wisconsin's own Derek Van Orden has proposed legislation that would allow undocumented farm workers to get legal employment status provided they haven't committed a crime, and both the immigrants and their employers would have to acknowledge the worker's status and then pay a fee.
Across small towns and major cities, voters in Wisconsin are opening up about rising costs, job struggles, and the uncertainty shaping their daily lives. Their voices reveal how quickly conditions are shifting and why so many are speaking out now.
There's been a lot of talk about some kind of a farmer bailout, but all the money I would get from a bailout would be going to pay off my crop inputs. So they would be going to the seed and chemical companies and the fertilizer companies. And if farmers don't get some relief to pay these bills, there's going to be a lot of bankruptcies, and there's going to be a lot of money lost on the side of corporate agriculture who sells us all of our inputs. So my take on it, on any kind of a farmer bailout, is that it's going to be more of a bailout for corporate agriculture.
I am not a farmer, but here in northeastern Wisconsin, I see how much farmers mean to our communities. You work hard, you feed us, and you keep our local economy strong. And right now, soybean farmers in this area are struggling because it costs about $10.80 to grow a bushel of soybeans, but they're only able to make about $9.50 or $10 when they sell it. That's losing money just for doing your job. That's happening because this administration started a trade war. China retaliated with tariffs, and now they get most of their soybeans from Brazil. And because they're doing that, prices are dropping. And let's be clear, farmers didn't start that fight, but they're the ones that are feeling the impacts, and that's not fair. It's not about how neighbors voted one way or another. It's about leaders keeping their word. Promises were made that these trade wars would help our agricultural industry, but that policy hasn't played out. Wisconsin farmers shouldn't be paying the price. We need leaders who respect honesty, hard work, and are true to their word.
The Trump administration ended a vital program for deafblind youth in Wisconsin. In late August, they cut funding for Wisconsin's only deafblind youth program. And the reason? Words like transition and privilege. I wish I was kidding. The word transition was used to describe helping kids move from high school to adult life. Privilege showed up in a parent's testimonial as someone said it was a privilege to be in the program. That was enough for the Department of Education to shut it down.
What would you say is the biggest issue facing your community?
Right now, it's basically all of our small town farmers getting pushed out for bigger corporations. I mean, there's 15, 20 farmers that I know personally that are now getting pushed out to do all these big 2,000, 3,000 cow barns. These small town guys, that's all we've got. We had a 5-generation dairy farm. Milk prices dropped so hard that we had to sell all of our dairy cows. We lost our big income right there. Big corporation, they lose 30 cents a gallon. It's not a big deal, but down here, we lose 30 cents a gallon. That's feed for a winter. That's food on our tables.
What do you think could address this problem?
The only way we can really be able to do it is if there's any sort of funding we can get from the government. Help us out. We're struggling here.
The governor of Wisconsin wants to change the fact that women can be called mothers to being called inseminated person. Are you kidding me?
Do you know how much you would pay in federal income taxes if Project 2025 were implemented? If the median household income in Wisconsin is about $70,000, most Wisconsinites could actually see a tax increase under Project 2025's 2-bracket tax proposal. Take a look. Based on this analysis, a family of 4 earning around $75,000 would actually see a tax increase of $1,800, while a family with an income of $5 million would get a tax cut of $325,000.
Okay, so if we start with Washington, there has been a big political push to dismantle the Department of Education. And I know this sounds abstract, but here are actions they're taking right now that are very real. They are moving federal education programs into agencies that have never dealt with schools, like the Department of Labor. They are slowing or freezing funding while everything gets shuffled around out there. They are cutting staff who enforce civil rights for kids with disabilities. And they are weakening offices that make sure that states follow special ed law. Not good when we're trying to turn everything back to the states, apparently. And they're pulling apart the support systems that rural districts rely on to navigate federal rules. This isn't about streamlining. It is stripping away the infrastructure that keeps public schools, especially small rural ones, stable. And when you tear down that scaffolding, the weight is all going to fall directly on families, teachers and staff, and kids.
Trump turned out to be a disappointment, a clown, and I was not happy with my choice shortly after I made it.
I am concerned that we're not getting the scientific facts based on the propaganda the Vantage is sending us. Data centers count for 4.4% of energy consumption in 2023. They are projected to increase 6 to 12% of all energy consumption by 2028. This is also from the Department of Energy. As a byproduct of the energy use, these are sizable greenhouse gas emissions from the maintenance of these data centers. A single data center consumes up to 5 million gallons of water per day. That is roughly the equivalent of 30 to 50,000 people's daily water consumption.
Vantage does not appear to be contractually obligated to use renewables, continue with a closed-loop system. This whole proposal is more greenwashing. I find it amusing and disheartening when private corporations get credit for saying they'll protect a piece of land that would otherwise be, perfectly fine.
Data centers do not increase economic growth. They do not create hundreds of high-paying jobs. Data centers increase utility rates, strain local utilities with their high energy consumption, come up short on their economic promises, prolong the operation of fossil fuel plants, and force trade-offs between energy and water efficiency. This information that I just said is from a study from the University of Michigan from July 2025. I'm concerned for the financial well-being of my neighbors, and I'm fiercely protective of our most valuable resource, Lake Michigan.
What you're giving your children and your grandchildren is this history. You have one chance to do this right.
Thanks to the Sora software, OpenAI's image and video generator, It's easy to feed photos of children sourced through social media and generate hyper-realistic child abuse materials in seconds. Even when no human predators are involved, AI is deadly. Teens and vulnerable adults using chatbots for therapy have received encouragement to practice self-harm. ChatGPT offered to write Adam Rain's suicide note, a 16-year-old boy.
Adam Rain was contemplating suicide to ChatGPT, OpenAI's chatbot, which the chatbot did just nothing to alert the authorities or give any warning. That is kind of the direction that this could go. Think about all the harm that it can be done to children everywhere.
This is an unregulated industry with real collateral damage in the form of human lives, let alone land and water.
Vantage knew how to close this deal. Move fast, publicly share the minimum amount of information possible, and do the political deals in the dark.
They were gleeful at the negotiations they were able to execute with you. When they went into that closed door meeting, the money they gave you that's now sitting in your ill-gotten offshore accounts, when you go to bed at night, just remember they would have given you 10 times more, you idiots.
When a big money corporation comes swooping into a small little town to solve your tiny little small town budgetary problems, they own you. Then they own the town. They own everything around it, and there's not a damn thing you can do once they're in there to get them out.
I'm confident that this case will one day be used as a textbook example of how to operate a city when your primary interests are destroying public trust, ignoring your constituents, and treating people like they're peasants unworthy of a seat at the table.
This is the domino that starts a vicious cycle of resource exploitation.
I'd like the mayor and members of Common Council to pause actions and negotiations for the data center. I would like the mayor and the Common Council to hear the people of Port Washington and give us the opportunity to vote on the biggest development this town has ever seen. Thanks.
My name is Carl Scholze. I'm a man from Neenah, Wisconsin, driving my wheelchair to Madison to raise awareness of the lack of home health care access. People like myself on Medicaid are going to start foregoing treatments in places like Wisconsin here. We have a lot of rural hospitals which get 20% of their funding from Medicaid. Probably 5 to 10% of these hospitals are going to be forced to close. My home health aides haven't had an appreciable increase in pay. The people that take care of me are expected to continue to survive on the same wages people were living on in 2016.
The minimum wage here in Wisconsin is $7.25. That's not going to cut it, okay? The cost of living is being raised exponentially while the wages are staying stagnant. That doesn't make any sense.
You have to make so much money in order to be able to afford $1,200 a month, you know? And then on top of that, afford, if you have a car payment, for example, or if you have car insurance, you have to have renter's insurance. And then you also have to afford food.
It's been a trend that's been around for a while, but we're starting to obviously, as costs continue to escalate, we're starting to see that more and more people falling in those gaps.
I think that there's no room for error. I think that's the issue with a lot of this.
They are Medicare patients. These buildings stay open because of Medicare. They will close down. They will not care for your aging parents and grandparents for free. They will send them home to you. You will have to quit your job and stay home and take care of them. That means you're going to have to be the caregiver for your father, your husband, your kids. You're going to have to quit your job. You're going to do all this on half the income for your household. This economy is going to suffer greatly when these places start closing down.
So I'm from a really tiny town in Wisconsin, and I just found out that my hometown held a referendum to allocate more taxes to their public school. And there's school choice, but this is a very rural area, so people have to drive 15, 20, 30 minutes to get to school. So it's the one school. That's where everybody's going. And they lost their referendum. It was shot down. So now the school is going to lose funding. They're going to have to cut things like sports, art, music. I mean, I hope they don't have to. I don't know what they're going to do, but it is very interesting to me because the people who are creating social media pages and pumping their fists in the air to save their tiny school, you all voted in, because you are very loud and proud to be MAGA, you all voted in a man who is going to do away with the DOE. The DOE is the Department of Education, which protects public schools nationwide. So
the DOE, you would be able to apply for and receive federal and state grants, which would ensure that your children don't lose these programs. But I mean, give it back to the people, right? I need you to see what you've done. I need you to see the consequences of these actions, because I'm so sad for those kids. That sucks. But like, he put Linda McMahon in charge of the DOE for a reason. That is a specific choice, because he doesn't want to do anything with it. He's going to do away with it. So why not put in a joke, a laughable person, because he doesn't take it seriously. And now schools nationwide are going to lose things. It's going to be a mess. And I'm honestly like really sad, but I need this. I'm hoping that this will be like a wake up moment, you know?
The stories shared today from Wisconsin offer a deeper look into the challenges many are facing as economic pressures continue to rise. These first-hand accounts remind us that behind every headline are real people navigating uncertainty, frustration, and difficult choices. Understanding their experiences helps us see the larger picture of what communities across the country are going through. If these stories resonated with you, please like, comment, subscribe, and share to help keep these voices heard. And click the video on your screen to see what's happening in other states across America. Every story adds to the truth unfolding nationwide.